Hi, nice to talk to you again via video. Um, the way that you look for this, so LGBTQ plus, I'm looking at another monitor over here, and addiction has many different facets because we have identity, where somebody like identifies themselves in a variety of like ancestry, gender, culture, community, beliefs, costumes, and there's like all of that can be tied up into conversations under the label LGBTQ. And then we have all sorts of different things related to addiction. So there's like addiction interventions, there's observations about populations with addiction policy. So there's like all these different things going around. So I'm going to show you how to narrow those down and how to find things that are ultra specific all the way up to really general. So let's start with the general. In the library catalog, LGBT, you could do LGBTQ plus, but some of the literature might not have had the plus in there. Some of the literature might not have had the Q if you go back far enough. To catch all of those, if you put a star, that will have everything with LGBT as a prefix, as you were, and then everything with the suffix of nothing to plus to Q and or a whole bunch of different iterations of that. Does that make sense? So it's like doing LGBT or LGBTQ or LGBTQ plus, all wrapped up into that one with the star. And addiction. Addiction, though, that one's pretty easy. The problem that we have with addiction, though, is it alcohol dependence? Is it heroin? Is it something where somebody's trying to create an addiction, like internet addiction or something like that? So this is where we start really, really generally. When you look in the library catalog, this is where we would find things that have been talked about enough, so much that they might show up in books. So if you go to books, you can see what are the books going on. And this one's like 2012. So you can narrow down, 1991 might be a smidge out of date. You get to pick. So let's come up, I'll say 2018 feels like a pretty recent time frame. So there's 52 results. So you have the context of a teacher looking at LGBTQ issues. Addiction might be part of this. It might be related to family. So if you have like a parent that is influenced by addiction, there's somebody who's like counseling, somebody who's coming into it from like social workers and therapists. So this is a good place to go to see who's talking about it and what angle. And these aren't necessarily scholarly works. These are going to be like guides of people who have lots of experience, or somebody who's done a big lit review and they're presenting kind of the state of that particular thing going on. And you can see it. Some of these seem unrelated. So your results may vary. Be that as it may, this is a great place to start. For the ebooks, when you go into the book, typically it'll have like the chapters right here, so you can quickly go through. So you can see gender, sexual identities producing a number of negative effects, isolation from friends. But again, this goes in teaching education. So is that the angle you're interested? Maybe, maybe not, but this is a good place to get like a good start. Second place to start, and I've showed you this in the other database, or the other video that I showed you, is databases. If you go to databases, you can narrow down to psychology or social work practice or public policy. And you remember that if you go into any of these, so for example, we will go to psychology, and you can see psych info from the APA. I can't remember if I showed you this in my last video, but if you go to research guides and go to social work and click on this guide and click on PhD and Masters, just go to this URL. I have a list of all my favorite databases. So that psych info is there. But you can look at sociology, where it's looking at entire societies, like a whole bunch of different cultures interacting with each other. Social science premium collection is pretty good. You can look at social work abstracts, where it's this is a pretty tight subject, where it's typically on theory and training. Or you can go into schools or public policy, or how people in health professions are working on it. So let's go into psych info. And I'll go to advanced search, and I'll show you ways of getting more specific. LGBT. Oh, look at all those different identities. I think you could try any of those, but I think LGBT really narrows it down. Then you could go into, is there like a gender? Is there an age? So we could say female or women, or even girls. Or you could do girl star. And then for an age, we could do young or adolescence. Oh, this writes itself. Or adolescent or teenager or youth. And then we could add addiction. Or substance abuse or drug abuse. Oof. It just keeps on expanding and expanding and expanding. Every time you add a keyword, it's narrowing it down even further. So what direction do you want to go should be described like this. So let's search, and I'll show you even more. So there's 79. You can narrow down by date, like we did before. But you can also take away sets of keywords. So you're just like, yeah, I'm just interested in people who identify as women, but I don't care how old they are. So you could take that away. So we'll go from 51 to 96. Or you can say, oh, I want to switch gender, I want to switch age. The population, the circumstances that they're in, the methodology that they use are all things that you can use to cruise around in this. Oh, that's one last thing that I wanted to say. Are you looking for something where it's talking about that very specifically? You only want the things that have LGBT, star, and addiction as the most important thing. You can sort that down to the title. So right now, it's searching kind of all over the metadata. But if you narrow it down just to the title, you can go through the articles that talk about your topic very, very specifically. So this could be the thing that you were looking for. This could be the thing that you're looking for. Oh, that's a book. If there's anything you can't get a hold of, let me know, and I'll track it down for you. To narrow it down just slightly, you could say, oh, I only want to have those things be in the abstract. So do you see, it's kind of like one of those accordions where you can compress or expand, and depending on what you want to look at. All of the databases that I showed you, cruise around in those different ones and see if you can't find what you're looking for. Social work people love psych info the best because it's typically focused on a very specific population or identity. And then there's all sorts of interventions and things like that. But let me know how it goes. And I'm happy to help further. Happy long weekend.